Now, I realise my polite criticism of Mr. Atkinson's opinions may upset some people, so let me just leave you with this little shining nugget. What the This is Almost Breaking News on the Everything Electric channel. Welcome to Almost Breaking News. I'm Robert Llewellyn. Coming up, the onslaught of negative press stories about renewables and electric transport continues. Isn't that lovely? Clean energy investment growth continues also. Electric buses in Nigeria. Volvo going gangbusters with big electric trucks. Super energy dense battery breakthrough in China. Tesla connectors for all electric cars in the USA? Huh? And Toyota going yo-yo on electric vehicles while still supporting radical climate skeptics and continued fossil fuel dependence. Now, it's not exactly fun dealing with this torrent of lies and distortion coming from the fossil fuel lobby and their many supporters and shills, but I feel it incumbent upon me to refute some of the more outlandish, desperate and highly emotive responses that have been released in recent months. To put this renewed sewage spill of negative reports in context, in the UK, certain sectors of the motor industry, the oil industry in its entirety, and the conservative press, who are supported by them, are increasingly panicked by the approach of the UK's 2030 ban on sales of new combustion engine vehicles. In the next few years, we will see them spending literally billions of dollars as they attempt to overturn or delay this law. I'm confident they will succeed in delaying it for another 5 or 10 years. That's the way they operate. They always have. It's nothing new. And they will encourage anyone they can to support them. And when I say encourage, I mean just give them huge amounts of money from any walk of life about any topic that might delay or help delay the uptake of electric ground transport. Now, we're all aware of these stories of recently car parks that will be crushed under the weight of electric cars, except for the 10 heaviest private vehicles on the roads of the UK are all petrol burners. And there's far more of them around than electric vehicles of any size. I'm going to say 3 letters, SUV. Massive, heavy cars. You know, it's got nothing to do with electric cars, complete nonsense. Potholes getting worse because of heavier electric cars. So I take it there's no trucks, buses, heavy delivery vans or streams of massive petrol and diesel SUVs on these roads with potholes. Could it be anything to do with local councils cutting back costs and not repairing roads? I can't imagine that could be the case. It's all down to electric cars. Brake dust from electric vehicles being worse than a diesel exhaust pipe because heavier. Use the brakes or something. Anyone who's driven an electric vehicle for a few weeks knows you use the brakes far less, and in some cases not at all. And you use them all the time in a combustion vehicle, which is constantly buffing out massive piles of brake dust every day. Charging infrastructure is not ready for 2030. No, it's not, because it's 2023. But 18,000 rapid chargers have been installed in the UK this year alone. And after a very mild heat wave in the UK recently, we had the truly pathetic headline in so many of the trashy newspapers, which stated that solar panels don't work in the heat, so we had to burn more coal. This was truly desperate, because on the day in question, the UK achieved a record-breaking day for solar generation. Just completely the opposite of the stupid story. They said, yes, because there was low wind and because we couldn't import a lot of electricity from overseas, we got ready to fire up a coal-burning power plant, but in the end we didn't need to. And now, our very own national treasure, Rowan Atkinson, yes, Blackadder, yes, Mr. Bean, lovely comedian, petrolhead, and why not, and now hero of the extreme right and the fossil fuel industry, after his gentle, very subtle critique of anything that might constitute an alternative to drill and burn technology we're all lumbered with today. Very cleverly worded. He loves electric vehicles. Oh yes, so much he loves them, but he feels duped. And yes, the bastion of left-leaning journalism, The Guardian, decided that this was worth publishing. And I want to state right here and now, I defend, literally to the death, Mr. Atkinson's right to say what he wants, his right to free speech, and the Guardian's right to take a decision to publish this celebrity thought piece without first fact-checking it a bit. It's their right to do that. They can do it. I have no problem with that. I mean, they did have to correct it a couple of days later. It was a little bit embarrassing as it contained so many factual errors. They eventually saw that this was a cleverly devised essay, and what this was really saying was keep burning oil. Now, I realise my polite criticism of Mr. Atkinson's opinions may upset some people, so let me just leave you with this little shining nugget. He stated at the start that he had studied electrical engineering, in fact, back in the 1970s. It's absolutely true. And he then went on to state that he was worried about the, and I quote here from his article, rare earth metals in batteries. Now, the most cursory research would have revealed that there are not now, nor have there ever been, any rare earth metals in any batteries, ever. Rare earth metals are used in electric motors and mobile technology, a lot of small mobile technology. The thing that makes your phone go zzz and vibrate, that's a rare earth metal, and they are not in the least bit rare. Now, this seemingly innocent error would be entirely forgivable for someone with zero scientific education, someone who just plain and simple hated electric cars. We hear it all the time. But that's not the case with Mr. Atkinson. He's highly intelligent and highly well informed. And sadly, this piece of misinformation is commonly thrown around by one specific very well-funded group, the fossil fuel lobby. You should worry about rare earth metals in batteries. I've seen it countless times in the last 10 years. And then Mr. Atkinson digs himself a deeper hole when he extols the virtues of the 1.5 billion combustion engine vehicles currently on the road globally, claiming that they have paid their environmental dues. Oh, I can carry on driving my diesel now because the carbon footprint of it being produced it's completely gone because I've had it for so long and I should keep it longer. Yeah. So the billions of gallons of toxic fossil fuel these vehicles burn every day is 100% irrelevant, I take it. Don't look over there at the massive negative global impact oil-burning technology is having. Just waffle on about rare earth metals in batteries. That'll keep people occupied and allow them to say, I don't want one of those electric cars because the batteries contain rare earth metals. I don't know what that means, but that's what I read in The Guardian. So now every petrolhead bully boy in the press has seized this very questionable opinion piece and now touted around like it was handed to them by the Lord. Like just now, when investment in renewable energy around the globe overtakes investment in fossil fuel development for the first time. Now, this information is from a recent report by the International Energy Agency, the IEA. Apparently, and I quote from their report, investment in clean energy technologies is significantly outpacing spending on fossil fuels as affordability and security concerns triggered by the global energy crisis strengthen the momentum behind more sustainable options. About $2.8 trillion is set to be invested globally in energy in 2023, in 1 year. More than $1.7 trillion is expected to go into clean technologies, including renewables, electric vehicles, nuclear power, grids, storage, efficiency improvements, insulation, and heat pumps. So that's good. Until you read that in the remainder, slightly more than $1 trillion is still going to developing oil, coal, and gas exploration and exploitation. That's in 2023. That's this year. $1 trillion is being spent to develop and increase our consumption of oil, gas, and coal, which is kind of depressing. But this is another quote from the report, which I'm trying to lift it a bit. Clean energy is moving faster than many people realize. This is clear in the investment trends where clean technologies are pulling away from fossil fuels. Now, this was a statement by the IEA Executive Director, Fatih Birol. For every dollar invested in fossil fuels, he continued, about $1.7 are now going into clean energy. 5 years ago, this ratio was 1-to-1. So what we're witnessing, kind viewers and critics, is signs of a genuine shift, a proper genuine shift away from burning fossil fuels. We've often covered stories about electric buses, clean public transport in European, American and Chinese cities. That's great, and it makes a huge difference. The hundreds of electric buses now in London have made a big contribution to cleaner air in the city. Well, I recently met someone who lives in Lagos, Nigeria. Lagos is the largest sub-Saharan city in Africa with a population of over 15 million people. Now, the topic of air quality came up pretty swiftly, mainly because the air quality in Lagos is not particularly pleasant. To be honest, it's a disaster, very much like Beijing, Cairo and Mumbai have been, and like Los Angeles was back in the early 2000s. And I can confirm that it was unpleasant because I lived there and it was horrible. Road transport makes up for well over a third of this toxicity, just under a half. Burning biomass for cooking, wood to you and me, coming a close second. So it's a really unhealthy environment. Hence why this story caught my eye. Oando Clean Energy Limited, who are based in Nigeria, have just inked a partnership deal, which I think means signed a contract, with Chinese bus manufacturer Yutong to supply 12,000 electric buses for the streets of Lagos. Not 12, not 1,200, 12,000. The plan also includes developing charging infrastructure and renewable energy generating capacity, and the first handful of electric buses are already on the streets of Lagos doing test runs. So imagine a world, now go with me on this just for a moment, where all the cities currently choking on thick clouds of toxic gases from millions of combustion engines and also from burning wood to cook. Imagine if they all had induction stoves that were solar powered. It's not impossible. And once again, the air was clean in those cities. It's not impossible, and the benefits are absolutely enormous. It's worth making the effort to try and change. But over in Sweden, Volvo have been quietly churning out large electric trucks for a couple of years, and they're about to pass the 5,000 mark in large truck sales. And I'm not talking delivery vans, I'm talking big trucks, 10 to 16 tons. And they've just started delivering their really chunky 44-ton, 100% battery electric trucks. Those are really massive beasts, and they are all electric, battery electric. Not hydrogen, like so many predicted, and I was happy to hear about, but no, battery electric. There are now literally thousands of Volvo electric trucks on the roads of Europe, and very few people would notice this change, other than they don't smell as bad. But we will start to see it. There are already massive ultra-high power truck recharging stations being developed. They look really cool. Can't wait to go and see one. So imagine a world, go with me on this just for a moment. Imagine a world if we moved all the goods we need, if we transported all those goods either by electric trains, which makes a huge amount of sense, or electric trucks, and then finally electric cargo bikes. The billions of barrels of crude oil we wouldn't burn each year would make a really big difference. The trillions of dollars that are leaving our economies to pay for that fuel. Anyway, all the links to these stories and everything else in this episode are in the show notes. This is just a quick battery story, but this could be a very big, quick battery story. Certainly something we'll keep an eye on over the next year or two. Okay, so battery energy density. Fairly nerdy subject, I grant you, but bear with me. Back in 2011, the Nissan Leaf, the first mass-produced ground-up electric car, had a battery with an energy density of 110 watt-hours per kilogram of battery weight. That was pretty much state-of-the-art at that time. In 2023, the Tesla Model 3 battery is around 296 watt-hours a kilogram, so almost 3 times more electricity can be stored in the same weight and size of battery. So just this week, researchers at the Institute of Physics at the Chinese Academy of Sciences have made a breakthrough. What these group of Chinese scientists have done is come up with an incredible energy density of 711 watt-hours per kilogram. Now, they have published a paper on this and how they achieved this, and the world of battery chemistry and engineering is paying very serious attention to their achievement. I read about this in a publication called Innovation's Origins, and I'm quoting from them here. With the potential to triple Tesla's current energy density, this breakthrough could have a transformative impact on the electric vehicle industry, improving range and performance while potentially reducing costs. Now, I remember when I first saw some Tesla superchargers. The first time I saw them was in the USA. They were in a rest stop in the desert in Nevada, about 100 miles outside Las Vegas. There was a long row of them in a car park. Many of them were in use. And I admit, I was kind of impressed. I'm just looking at the future. Then they started to appear in Europe and then in China and Australia. And now they have an incredible network of chargers covering a huge area of the planet. And all this has happened really in the last 10 years. And from the get-go, these chargers only worked on Tesla cars. They were incredibly powerful. They always work. So they are incredibly reliable. And at present in the UK, the cost per kilowatt hour to charge from a Tesla charger is just about the lowest for any of the rapid chargers available. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of abuse for saying that, but that is my experience. And I've used a lot of different chargers with a lot of different cars, and I've used a lot of Tesla superchargers. Now, they are opening up for all electric cars all around the world. So in Europe, they already have. In the UK, there's a few of them. And I have charged our MG4 and a VW ID4 at Tesla superchargers, and the system worked faultlessly and easily. Charged the cars, carried on. Now, in Europe, we use the CCS or combined charging system, which Tesla have adopted here. So all Tesla cars here have CCS connectors, and all supercharger stations that Tesla have supplied are fitted with CCS connectors. So that's the common use in Europe and pretty much everywhere else. But in the USA, Tesla uses the North American Charging Standard, or NACS, which has not been adopted by other manufacturers yet. Now, there are 17,000 of these chargers at 1,728 locations in the USA as of May this year. In fact, by now I'm doing this in end of June. There's going to be loads more. But anyway, there's a lot of them. First, Ford, then General Motors, then Rivian, and literally just now Volvo have all announced that they have done deals with Tesla and are going to adopt this charging system in the USA. So we're talking about the actual plug, the actual socket that you plug your car into. That's going to be the same on all those cars as it is on a Tesla. The only problem I can see where other car companies locate the charge points on their vehicles kind of needs to be standardized. I mean, because the MG4 has a charge port in exactly the same position as a Tesla, it was no problem. Reverse in, plug it in, boom, job done. But with the VW ID4, it took up 2 spaces when I charged of it because the awkward position of the charge port, can I reach it, stretch the cable, was not optimum. Got some pretty dirty looks from Tesla drivers. Anyway, moving on, next story. Toyota are going all out on electric vehicles with solid-state batteries. And that's what they've been telling us. Except, no, they're not. They are digging in and maintaining their support for climate skeptics and lobbying governments to keep burning oil. Well, no, they're not. They're going to go all in on amazing new electric vehicles. No, they've voted to keep funding climate change denial lobby groups. What? I can't even do a big what they were. It's just a what the... This is so confusing. This is a story from The Driven. All the links, as I've said, in the show notes. So literally the day after the company unveiled their very ambitious electric vehicle plans, they had a big shareholder meeting in Toyota City, Japan. Toyota have announced that they are introducing a load of electric cars over the next few years. Yes, and there's been a change of leadership at the top, which for a while gave the impression that the company was rethinking its staunch pro-fossil fuel position. So very recently, there was a proposal from a group of influential Toyota shareholders to commit the company to a comprehensive annual review of its climate-related lobbying. Let's face it, the polite term climate-related lobbying really means applying pressure and political donations. I didn't say bribes. I said political donations to politicians and political parties who are supporting them in trying to delay any legislation that restricts the sale of combustion engines. According to many, many different sources, and my goodness, I've looked through loads of them and they're all saying exactly the same thing, Toyota is among the top global organizations for lobbying against changes to government climate policy due to its opposition to dates for phasing out internal combustion engines and hybrid vehicles in favor of electric vehicles. Any familiar sounding little bells ding, ding, dinging there? 2030, the big pushback. Who could possibly be behind that? I cannot imagine. Sadly, Toyota's board recommended shareholders vote against the resolution, and so they did. Well, weren't they obedient? The shareholder group calling for the change, who collectively hold $400 million worth of Toyota stock, include Danish pension fund Akademiker Pension. That's what it looks like. I know I've said it wrong. Norway's Storebrand Asset Management and Dutch pension investment company APG Asset Management. So hats off to those three companies for getting in there and trying to change things from the inside. I mean, you failed. It's not your fault. I don't blame you. No one should blame you. It's a really important thing you tried to do. In a press release, that group of people said, "We are concerned that Toyota is missing out on profits from soaring EV sales, jeopardizing its valuable brand and cementing its global laggard status." Isn't it sad? I mean, I'm sure they will eventually bring out really good, really popular electric vehicles. But the world could be literally 5 years ahead in terms of global EV adoption, if they hadn't pushed back so hard to keep their petrol-powered, self-charging hybrids available. Anyway, that's it. I was thinking just then, it's not been a really jolly story. It just hasn't been one. Some of those are quite optimistic. I try and do a jolly story at the end, and I didn't. So there we go. But anyway, please do keep watching the Everything Electric show. Lots of other shows coming up soon. We're doing a load of stuff. We're doing a lot of filming at the moment because it's nice and sunny and warm. So it makes it nice to be outside and do some filming. And loads of podcasts, some really interesting podcasts coming very soon. And also over on the main channel, the Fully Charged show, we've got some incredible electric vehicle and ground transport reporting coming your way. So please do subscribe to all of them and tell your friends about it. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.